The Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party.
Mr. Speaker, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change published its landmark sixth report, Climate Change 2022, 6 weeks ago. Incorporates the work of 270 authors from 67 countries, and it concludes that the world faces unavoidable multiple climate hazards over the next 2 decades with global warming of 1.5 degrees. And this is the situation in which the current budget provides no new funding for the climate plan that's slated to be released this spring. Will the Premier explain how he thinks his government is responding appropriately to the climate emergency with a climate plan that has no increase in funding?
The Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very proud of the work that the minister is doing. Well, obviously, we know the legislation that went before this House, passed this House back in the fall, was incredibly significant legislation. And I would just point out to the member, it's really important that when we think of proper context when we have these discussions. If there is no new money, and I don't know, we'd have to debate that. But even if that were to be true, Mr. Speaker, that doesn't mean no money. They could very well be that there's sufficient money in the budget already, and we didn't need to increase it. But that's a more detailed discussion that I'd be happy to have with the member if he was actually interested in having a discussion like that. I appreciate it.
The Honourable Member, Leader of the New Democratic Party, on his first supplementary.
We are actually interested in the absence of an increase, Mr. Speaker. Now, the chair of the IPCC says this report is a dire warning about the consequences of inaction. Half measures are no longer an option, and that's true. And yet, it is also true that the government has brought forward a budget in which funding this year for the Department of Environment and Climate Change is actually, less than it was the year before. So I want to ask the Premier why his government is not bringing forward a level of climate change investment that actually corresponds to the level of the threat that is before us.
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, and I actually reject the entire premise of the question. We know that there was a bit of staffing realignments, a bit of reorganization. It's not as simple as looking at the bottom line and comparing, because there's other moving parts to these things. But if the member needs to know anything about our commitment to protecting the planet, he need only revisit the legislation that passed this House in the fall. That shows our commitment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party on his final supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, many of us would have heard a media interview with a man named Stan Peach in Port Morion last week. With coastal erosion, Mr. Peach's family home is closer to the edge of the cliff every year. It's now about 15 feet from falling into the ocean, and Mr. Peach speaks in the interview about how frightened he is about this. Well, Mr. Speaker, the IPCC report is not just an academic study. It is a call to action to protect the people of Nova Scotia, who are, like the Peach family in many ways, with our province perched on the edge of a catastrophic climate cliff. Will the Premier explain what solutions this budget is concretely providing and offering to a province on the edge of terrifying impacts from the point of view of climate change?
The Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'll be happy to walk the member through the legislation that went through this House. I think it speaks to a lot of the concerns, but it also speaks to the fact that we have to develop a fulsome strategy. Now, I know the minister and his team is working on that. Look, we're very focused on this issue, and I would just go back one more time, Mr. Speaker, just for the sake of absolute clarity. We tabled the most aggressive, ambitious environmental legislation that has been tabled in the country, and we're proud of that legislation. We're focused on that legislation, and we are committed to that legislation because, Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we do what we say we're going to do.